First of all, thank you all for coming, and you're all very welcome. Our talk this evening, I think, is going to be an interesting one. It's in the context of the Jesuit Heritage Week. As those of you from Georgetown already know, but those of you from outside maybe don't, Georgetown is a Jesuit university, and it's actually the oldest Jesuit university in the United States, and one of the oldest universities in the States. It goes back to 1789. Well, they've been having this Jesuit Heritage Week in Georgetown in Washington for some years, but this is the first time that we have done it here in Doha. And the idea is just to recall and to inform ourselves and to celebrate some elements of our Jesuit heritage. So this year we invited as our keynote speaker a Jesuit from Indonesia, actually from my province. I'm American, but I'm from Indonesia province of the Jesuits. And my colleague from Indonesia is Father Bambang Sipayung. Now, those of you who are from Indonesia will remember that Bambang is maybe the most Javanese of all Javanese names, and Sipayung is Batak name. So he's unlike most of our Jesuits from Indonesia. He's from the island of Sumatra. And Bambang is the director of the Southeast Asian and Pacific region of the Jesuit Refugee Service. I won't preempt his talk to tell you anything about the Jesuit Refugee Service, but Bambang is in charge of all our operations that are going on in Southeast Asia. I know that he himself, in his past, has worked as part of Jesuit Refugee Service program in Cambodia and also in East Timor. So if any of you want to ask him anything about that later on, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. Finally, before I invite Father Bambang to the podium to speak, I hope that you all know that we would be very happy to have all of you for dinner this evening. So don't rush off as soon as the program is over, but we'll be having dinner in the aula, no, this is the aula. What do we call it? In the atrium, yes. I'm new here and I'm still learning the proper terminology. So in the atrium, afterwards we'll have dinner. So it's really a privilege for me to introduce Father Bambang Sipayung. He's one of the younger Jesuits that we really are very proud of, because they're so well prepared. His own background is in development studies. His work and his experience has been in two very difficult refugee situations, and so he's really got a lot to share with us this evening. So with that, I'd like to invite Father Bambang to come up and take the floor.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Father Tom, for introducing me, and thank you for the organizing committee to invite me here. It's been an honor to talk about one of the Society of Jesus work, and also to talk a little bit about the refugees situation. What I prepare here is basically a sharing from what I experienced and from my working situation. I chose the title Being Companions on the Way because, for me at least personally, working with the refugees is really how you accompany them, being present with their daily life and challenges and also struggles. You see that there are 2 years there, 1980 and 2012. Actually, it was a mistake. I cannot edit the pictures because of my lack of understanding with the Photoshop. But then it's a deliberate mistake because 1980s obviously is 14 November, the establishment of Jesuit Refugee Service, And 2012 for me is the year when I start my role as a regional director. What I would like to do this evening, I will start with a story, then it will lead us to the short history of GRS, and then I will talk about the missions, what actually GRS adds to the refugee work. And then I will talk a little bit about the higher education, the work we are doing now in the refugee camp. Then we have an overview about the GRS presence in the world, the refugees and displaced communities, and also the challenges now we are facing, especially in the environment of the refugee situation. And finally, I will conclude with Jesuit traditions of GRS. The stories goes like this. This is the refugee camp, one of the refugee camp in East Timor. This is pictures of a baby. This is literally an instant noodle box, which commonly found in Indonesia and East Timor at that time. A story was told to me by a female GRS staff working in East Timor. I saw a middle-aged woman just giving birth when I accompanied Sister Huberta that day. She did not look healthy, and it appeared that she could not breastfeed the baby as her milk did not flow. Fortunately, there was another breastfeeding mother who was willing to feed her baby, and yet the baby did not respond well and was not able to consume the milk from another woman. The baby looked pale, and probably the bad situation of the camp contributed to his unhealthy condition. The next day, I heard the baby died, and it made me so sad. I even more sad as I learned that the family did not have enough money to buy a proper casket to bury the baby. They put the baby into a box of instant noodle and buried him. I was furious to know this. How can the parents let that happen? Why did not their community help them? They are poor, but the baby deserves a proper, simple casket for him. The story sends two important messages. First, a solidarity in the difficult situation, a sharing of breastfeeding mother. Second, of course, the harsh reality faced by the poor people, especially the refugees, which they could not afford to buy a simple, proper casket. If you attend a funeral, normally you have a picture of a deceased person. One picture, then it means one person died. Two pictures, two persons. Three, and then you have more, and you have more, you have more, and then more, and more. And of course, the pictures, or the person pictures, becomes smaller and smaller. If it is too many, sometimes the pictures becomes unimportant. Then we lost the baby. When the baby died in 1999, there was a continuing civil war between Eritrea and Ethiopia. There was a war in Kosovo. There was a coup d'etat in Pakistan and conflict in several other places. There are a lot of casualties, refugees, and also dead people. And if you put all the data together, then it will become numbers like this. And then, sometimes we lost the person in all the counts. And it reminds me of what Joseph Stalin once said, that a single death is a tragedy, but a million deaths is just a statistic. But despite these numbers, the death of that particular baby remains in the memory of this GRS staff. It stays in her memory, and then it also reminds me of what once a French historian says, memory is perpetually actual phenomenon, a bond tying us to the eternal present, while history is a representation of the past. With that, let's take a look at the memory of how GRS started or was established. The context after the Second World War is the Cold War. I think basically you know about the two competing big ideologies, the socialists and communists, and also the Western capitalism at the other side. And the rest of the countries competing the two ideologies competing to find countries to support them. And then one of the places is Vietnam, where North Vietnam are aligned to the socialist communists, while South Vietnam are more tend to the Western capitalism. In I think late 70s, when finally the North Vietnam occupied the capital of South Vietnam, which is known as the Fall of Saigon, many people fled to save their life. This is what we know as the phenomenon of the refugees or boat people in late 70s. They fled to these countries, neighboring countries, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, and even as far as Australia. Of course, the questions, what and how should we respond to this phenomenon? This is precisely the route that I can show you here, just to give an illustration how they fled their countries. The same questions was asked by this man. This is Pedro Arrupe, the general of the Society of Jesus, or the kind of the highest command of the Jesuits all over the world. He was on his way back from the Philippines to Rome when he was stopped by in Thailand, and then saw this phenomenon and said, struck and shocked by the plight of the thousands of boat people and refugees. And he asked the society, what can we do? At that time, there's this group of men who already worked in a refugee camp in Thailand and Cambodian border. And they also are eager to continue working in the camp serving the refugees. And finally, November 14, Jesuit Refugee Service was established, and it's the Society of Jesus in general acknowledges as one of the Jesuit work. In 1995, the 34th General Congregation, the highest consultative forum of the Jesuits, acknowledged the fact of the refugee situation, which is 80% are women and children. And this is precisely the logo of JRS. You see there are 4 peoples there, 2 children, 2 women, and only 1 man. And then also the same General Congregation acknowledged JRS as a work of Society of Jesus, which fulfills the mission to serve faith and to promote justice. Jesuit Refugee Service was not, and is not, and I think will not be the only refugee organization working in the camp. Or even sometimes there are other organizations can work better. But the questions will be what they can add to the work of the refugees. This is some image which ask or people working in the camps, which actually reflect what kind of contribution we would like to make. And then from the experience, the JRS directors in Thailand in 1985 said that it is more the emphasis on the being with them, being present with them, rather than doing for. So the presence is very important in order to feel, to share, and to look from their eyes. And then again, the international directors stressed the importance of personal approach in the work with the refugees in order to understand their stories. It's not only about their suffering, but also their courage, the story of their solidarity, and also their resilience. Therefore, for JRS, accompaniment becomes important as its mission. It comes first, and only through the accompaniment we learn how to serve and also to defend their causes. And then many of our pictures reflect the situation like this: visit to the detention center or talking to the refugees themselves. And in that accompaniment mission, service comes as another aspect which is important. It's not only about giving the food or building the house, it's also about building the community, giving them space to be engaged and also a chance to participate in building their own lives. The other service, which is also covers most of our projects, are education. It may relate to the fact that JRS, as one of the Jesuit institutions, is known to link to Jesuit, which has its excellent tradition in education. Well, Georgetown is really a good example. And also related to the fact that when violence, war, and even natural disaster strikes, not only the education infrastructure destroyed, but also the system collapse. Providing the education in the camp is providing a hope for them. So once they can return to their own country, they have the skills, the knowledge, and also the resilience to build their own country based on their lessons and knowledge. This is another important service for GRS. It involves, of course, counseling, building the community centers, giving space for cultural expressions, and even just to talk to the people. And of course, this involves a religious celebration, either Christians, Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist, for the refugees so that they can express their faith. This is some numbers of people we serve. As you see, most of the people we serve are in terms of the education and the psychosocial and pastoral. Now, I would like to touch a little bit about the higher education. There's another Jesuit organization called Jesuit Commons Higher Education at the Margins. The idea of these institutions is an alliance of Jesuit universities, currently are mostly from the United States, and they would like to provide access to higher education for those at the margin. And then the collaboration with GRS gives a very clear idea of those people in the margin, which is the refugees. So it gives a chance to refugees to participate in the global community of learners in order to build a more peaceful world and a more humane world. That higher education has two structures. One is the liberal art, and the other one what we call the community service learning track. The Diploma of Liberal Art is a 3-year program with 45 credit, and it's awarded by the Regis universities in US. The other structures is 13 weeks to 6 months, and it's also subject to the needs of the community and delivered locally, while maintaining the excellent quality of learning. Currently, the students are the refugees from 17 countries with 224 diploma students, the 3-year program, 450 community service learning track students with multiple religions. I want to show you something, one center of what we are doing with distance learning. This is the map of Thailand, and then there's a place called Mae Hong Son where the refugee camp is located from people from Burma. We have this learning center. This is actually the physical building. Then you have here the internet connection, and of course the classroom with computers where the teaching process or learning process takes place from professors from the Jesuit universities in US and with the refugees in the camp. This is the first graduation ceremony took place in Malawi last October for the liberal art program. Now the third component of GRS mission is advocacy. Well, it wants to address also the root cause of the refugee situation rather than just giving the charity. But of course they are doing it with some ways. This is organizing like a march in certain places, talking to the influenced people, also talking in the UN. But all this advocacy is based on the principle proximity with the refugees, accompaniment, built on Jesuit values, as well as also on the solid research. This is some activities we are engaged in the advocacy. Of course, landmines in the issues faced during the refugee return home. Then you find also the cluster munition, the use of children in the war, and then the issues of detention center, and also the use of rape and gender violence in the conflict. I will stop talking and listen to this one. She was from one of the refugee camp in Aceh, northern tip of Sumatra, just before the tsunami affected the area in 2004. So there was a conflict, and then she and the family has to escape their villages, and then they have to live nearby the town. What actually she said is about the difficulties she has to face in relation to find daily lives, as well as to send the children to the school. But also, she said that he keep the hope. She prayed to God to make her strong, and also to make the family strong, so they can be in this situation and then find some solution. What actually the refugees? The UNHCR defined refugees as someone who, owing to a well-founded fear of being persecuted for reasons of race, religion, nationality, membership of particular social group or political opinion, is outside of the country of his nationality and is unable to, or owing to such fear, is unwilling to avail himself of the protections of that country. But the Catholic Church has another definition, which also include those who are trapped or cannot go out of the country because of the war, and also includes those who are driven from their homes because of the natural disasters and even erroneous economic policy. Currently, this is the map where JRS is present. There is one international office in Rome. There are 10 regions: Asia Pacific, South Asia, Eastern Africa, West Africa, South Africa, Great Lakes, Middle East, Europe, South America, and United States. I will change the map and then put again the regional office, and this is another 50 countries who work, and the international office. And here's the map provided by Human Development Index report. They basically put 3 categories. One is the high developed index countries, the middle developed index countries, and low developed index countries. And if you put all the regional office there, you find that 8 regional offices based in middle and low developed index countries, 2 regional office, which is USA and Europe, is in the high developed index countries, and of course international office is in high developed index countries. What actually caused the refugees flows? This diagram came out as the result of our discussions last June in Cambodia to talk about the reconciliation. And we saw that the violence now becomes one of the factors that push people out of their countries. But it's not so simple. There is elements of violence which relate to the global trade of arms and also minerals. There is an impunity for human rights abuses. There is a political instability. There is intolerance and xenophobia, then internationalization of civil conflicts, as well as exploitation of ethnic and religious tensions. These cause people get into the war and also push people, innocent people, out of their homes. Second thing is about the environmental issues. This is another challenges we face. These 2 areas in the circle is the Pacific region, where now there are evidence the increasing sea level. Some islands actually already inundated, and they are feared that in the years to come, some of these islands really lost from the map and then force people to get out of their countries. This is Asia Pacific, where many of the natural disasters took place. 2004, tsunami hit Indonesia, Thailand, and southern part of Sri Lanka. 2008, Cyclone Nargis hit Myanmar. 2010, flash flood in the southern of the Philippines, and then 2011, another tsunami hit Japan, and last year, 2013, Typhoon Yolanda hit Philippines. Now look at these areas and try to understand where the movement take place of the people. we assume that they will move to high developed index countries, which is also happening, but also happening that they just move to the other middle or low high developed index countries. This is the trend. This happens in Asia Pacific. Most of those refugees in Asia Pacific are also from Asian countries, especially in 2010 it's from the Afghanistan. Here are the largest population found in Thailand at the moment: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, which comes from the region. The other challenges is the what they call the border sovereignty. More and more we find countries, especially developed countries, implement stricter immigration policies. One of the good examples in the region is Australia, which introduced what they call the Operation Sovereign Borders. Basically, they don't want to they want to deter the boats coming in with the refugees and asylum seekers. And the argument is this is for the sovereignty of the countries. And then according to the Australian authorities, since September 2013, since they implemented this policy, 22 boats were intercepted with 1,106 people inside. The total boat arrival from 3 years, 2010-2013, is about 338. The other challenging issues is that more and more we find the refugees not in the refugee camp, as I saw you in the earlier slides, more now living in urban places like in Bangkok, Jakarta, Nairobi, Johannesburg, and also other places. From total people of concern, 8.4 million in Thailand, which include the refugees and displaced communities, 3.5 million are refugees and 2.3 are living in the urban areas. And many of them doesn't have any proper documents or valid documents, therefore they are vulnerable of being arrested. And when they are being arrested, especially in Thailand, they will end up in the detention center like this, and it could last from weeks, years, maybe longer than that. Their freedom of movement is strictly restricted. It's very populated. A room like this, you may have about 100 or 200 people. Then sometimes children are put together if they are over 14 years old with the other male detainees. And also, they cannot work if they are in this kind of situation. Now, just to conclude, Jesuit Refugee Service is an apostolic work of Society of Jesus as a response to the phenomenon of refugees and boat people in 1980s, which has accompaniment, service, and advocacy as its mission. As a part of Jesuit work, it gives attention to integrated human person, not only material, but including material, spiritual, and also social dimension. The challenging situation now is that there is a continuing violence due to ethnic, religion, and also resources, but also there is increasingly fear about the natural disaster and also environmental degradation. And now we see more and more refugees found in the urban setting, which often not in the light. And then the process of finding a third country for asylum is difficult now because of the more barriers on immigration policies, and the refugees end up in long waiting or detained, deported, or death because taking dangerous journeys in the sea. The incident in Lampedusa last year shows this great example of the dangerous journeys and then end up in the death. Then I would like to end with another story. It's called The Fishes in the Shore. A man dreamed of a nice time in a beautiful beach. He walked along the beach until he found a dead dolphin. To his shock, he saw another one just about 10 meters. He walked further and then found several others dying. He rushed to help the dying dolphins and send them back to the water. One by one, he dragged them and sent them to the sea. He continued to do so until a man approached him saying, "There are too many of them. You will not make much difference. They are going to die anyway." He responded, "Well, For this one, surely my action will make a difference. Thank you very much.